By 2030, over 145 million electric vehicles will be on the road. No emissions, no pollution. The perfect climate solution, right? Governments worldwide are pushing EV adoption, phasing out gasoline and diesel cars. Automakers are racing to electrify their fleets. And we, the consumers, are told that driving an EV is the best way to reduce our carbon footprint. But what if I told you that EVs might not be as green as we think? While they reduce emissions, their hidden costs could create a new set of environmental challenges. Before we declare EVs the future, let's take a step back and look at the full picture, because the truth might surprise you. Let's start with the big question. Do EVs actually reduce emissions? When people think of EVs, they picture clean, zero-emission driving. No tailpipe, no pollution. But there's a catch. EVs don't create emissions on the road, but the electricity they use might. An electric car is only as green as the power grid that charges it. If you drive an EV in Norway, where nearly all electricity comes from hydropower, then yes, your car is truly clean. However, in countries like China or India, where coal still dominates the grid, an EV can indirectly produce almost as much CO2 as a hybrid car. One study found that over 90,000 miles, a petrol-powered car emitted only 24% more CO2 than an EV is charged from a natural gas-powered grid. And in coal-dependent regions, that margin gets even smaller. So does this mean EVs aren't better than gasoline cars? Not exactly. Over their entire lifespan, EVs still emit less CO2, sometimes 2 to 3 times less. Why? Because gasoline and diesel cars keep emitting CO2 every time they drive, while EVs, once built, have no tailpipe emissions. On average, an EV breaks even with a gasoline car's emissions within 6 months to 2 years of driving, depending on where it's charged. After that, it's significantly cleaner. So EVs are better in the long run, but what about the hidden costs, like their batteries? Unlike gasoline cars, which rely on oil, EVs rely on metals, specifically lithium, cobalt, and nickel for their batteries. And mining these materials comes with its own set of environmental and ethical concerns. Lithium mining, for example, is water-intensive. In Chile's Atacama Desert, lithium extraction consumes millions of liters of water, drying out rivers and affecting local farmers. In Argentina and Bolivia, similar issues threaten local ecosystems. It takes 750 tons of brine to produce just 1 ton of lithium. Then there's cobalt, an essential material for many EV batteries. Over 70% of the world's cobalt supply comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where reports of child labor and unsafe mining conditions have raised serious ethical concerns. And let's not forget nickel, another key material. Its mining process releases huge amounts of carbon dioxide and often leads to deforestation, worsening climate change instead of helping it. And what happens when these batteries reach the end of their life? Currently, only 5% of lithium-ion batteries are recycled, meaning millions of old batteries could end up in landfills, creating new environmental risks. But batteries aren't the only issue. There's another challenge we rarely talk about, the power grid. One of the biggest overlooked challenges of mass EV adoption is whether our power grids can handle it. Charging millions of EVs will significantly increase electricity demand, especially during peak hours. Take California, for example. Despite being a leader in EV adoption, the state has faced rolling blackouts due to energy shortages. Now imagine adding millions of new EVs to the grid. Without upgrading infrastructure, this could lead to even more power instability. A city with 100,000 EVs consumes as much electricity as a small town. Then there's the paradox. If a grid is still powered by fossil fuels, then charging an EV isn't truly clean. This is why transitioning to renewable energy is just as important as transitioning to electric vehicles. But what if we looked at the bigger picture? What if we focused on using fewer cars altogether? Maybe the best climate solution isn't just swapping gas cars for EVs, but reducing our reliance on cars altogether. Cities like Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and Singapore are leading the way by investing in public transport, cycling infrastructure, and pedestrian-friendly streets. The fewer cars we use, EV or not, the lower our carbon footprint. The transport sector accounts for 20 to 30% of global emissions. Cutting car use greater than switching to EVs alone. A world with fewer cars means lower emissions, fewer accidents, and healthier cities. Instead of just replacing gasoline cars with EVs, we should be redesigning our cities to be less car-dependent altogether. But even in a world with fewer cars, individual actions still matter. What about everyday choices? How do we make real sustainable changes in our daily lives? That's where EcoCreds comes in. We help you track your carbon footprint, make sustainable choices, and earn rewards for taking action. Whether it's reducing waste, recycling, or supporting clean energy, every step matters. EVs are a step forward, but they're not the final answer. The future of sustainability isn't just about what we drive, it's about how we live. Follow us on X to learn more.